I think when my dad asked me about when I was leaving the army and said, James, are you doing the right thing? Because, it's a secure, steady job that you're in the army. It's a safe job, ironically, a safe job, he was saying, compared to the dangers of going into the music business. And at the time I was saying, hey, Dad, well, success to me is not measured in fame or fortune, but just the smile on my face, and to know that I'm chasing my dream, to enjoy doing music, and better that than, reaching old age and saying I had a dream and I was too afraid to follow it.
James Blunt, welcome to Smooth.
So nice to see you.
Very nice to see you. I was going to say, I know that you were friends with our Tina, and at some point I need some dirt on her.
Yeah, maybe off mic.
Yeah, okay, that would be good.
I've got a ton of it.
Okay, that's good. Well, you'll be pleased to know I haven't actually got any dirt from her about you. Well, not that I'm willing to say on camera. It's really nice to chat to you here. I cannot believe it was 20 years ago that the first album came out.
I know. Time has flown.
I know.
I mean, you look great for it.
Thank you very much. So do you. No, I think you do.
I'm having quite a lot of work. Little and often has been my plastic surgery motto. But yeah, 20 years. So we're whacking the album out again because it was the album that people bought. So we should put it out again and milk it for all it's worth.
Yeah, but it did really well. It was like one of the top 10 albums of the noughties.
It was the biggest selling album.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Noughties, which shows that really that the noughties probably were the greatest musical decade known to mankind in that way, arguably.
But what I get is that one of the songs, obviously Wise Men, you wrote way before that.
Yeah, I think I probably started writing that in something like 1992. And it took me something like 8 years to write. And it was little ideas. I suppose that's where I started out. I learned how to play the piano, then the guitar, and then I started having musical ideas. And it's only, with a bit of time and experience that I became, a songwriter rather than just someone learning the trade.
Yeah, I was just talking just before I came in here to chat to you. I was chatting in the office about that first album, and everyone has memories of it. I mean, everyone does, and everyone has their own stories. And the story that they were all talking about was, did you know that he was living at Carrie Fisher's house? Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I'm doing the recording of that and some subsequent albums. Really, I lived with her, I suppose, whenever I was recording, between 2002, when I recorded Back to Bedlam, until she died in 2016. And it was just an amazing place to live. Her mind is so full of ideas, and she skips between subjects so amazingly. People thought she was mad, and she wasn't mad. She was just really very bright. And her house kind of summed up her brain. She would have chandeliers in the garden, in the trees in her garden. She had a piano that played itself in her bathroom, which is where I wrote Goodbye My Lover. I recorded Goodbye My Lover on that piano in her bathroom. She had a Christmas tree set up 365 days a year. And that was just, that's just a tiny taste of the kind of the beautiful mad house that I lived in, recording particularly my first album, Back to Bedlam.
Yeah, it's amazing. What amazing stories you have to tell as well.
Yeah, very lucky. Incredible people coming through. She was obviously married to Paul Simon, so his son Harper Simon was there. A ton of different musicians would be passing through. Joni Mitchell would be there one day, and you just never knew who was quite moving through.
Yeah, well, and also you were there, so there we go. They've all got that story to tell.
So yeah, amazing.
Fascinating that Wise Men. You've released it once, then you released it twice, kind of not long after, and now you're about to release it for the third time.
Yeah, so what we did with my first album is record labels, chuck out an album and they count its success by first week sales.
Okay.
Which to me was terrifying because I had no idea who'd buy my album on the first week. I didn't, I only knew 50 people in the world. And so we whacked it out, and I begged the record label to concentrate on second week sales instead, if we could build something slowly. So we put out High, we got a little bit of radio play, and then we put out Wise Men, and then it started getting in the charts. And I think my first week we sold something like 483 copies of my album, but the second week we sold double the number, and Wise Men got it into the charts properly, up in the number 20. That was the second single, and we, as you say, we are going to release that again as its third re-release. And then obviously we released You're Beautiful, and that's when everything changed.
How did your life change then with that?
Well, it was quite frightening, actually. If I remember, rightly, I got a phone call from a radio rep who called me. His name was Jasper, and he said, I'm not supposed to call you and tell you. It's supposed to come from your management, but you've hit #1 on the album and the single. And I was in a hotel in Switzerland. I was just about to go and support Jamiroquai, and I put the phone down, and I was just petrified, really, that we'd hit #1. And life changes when you hit #1. If you hit #2, you're still a musician. If you hit #1, you become a celebrity, and that really scared me. Jamiroquai was furious that he'd been booked on with this artist who was #1 that week. We get on really well subsequently, but it was, but it was a moment. And for me, the world kind of changed.
Yeah, I bet it did, actually. Have you felt like it's just been a whirlwind ever since, or have you managed to take control?
I wasn't pursuing fame. I really wanted to be a professional musician. I've been really, really lucky. I'm still in the business. I'm still touring. We sold out the O2 yesterday, and the relief of seeing somewhere like that size venue selling out is for me is huge. I was very nervous when we put.
I can't believe you still get nervous like that, do you?
I love performing live, but when we, and I'm very comfortable getting on the size of stage, whatever size it is. But when I put on ticket sales for that many people, I'm nervous because my mates are going to come, and if there are empty seats, then that would be embarrassing. So to still be in the business after this long has been absolutely amazing, and it comes with great highs and great lows. But I've loved every minute.
Yeah, and it's the 20th anniversary tour you're talking about next year as well.
Yeah, I mean I'm on the road all this year with my last album, but we kick off in February, celebrating the 20 years of Back to Bedlam. I haven't told my wife that, again, that's another year away from home. But I'm very lucky to be in the gig.
Yeah, I mean, so much has changed since you started out. You have got a wife, you have got kids. Do you split your time between here and overseas as well? Is that right? Ibiza's quite often home.
Yeah, exactly. I do. I kind of base them wherever the fun is, and I go on the road and I try and meet up with them wherever I can. So they're at school in Ibiza in the summer, and sometimes they come on the road too. I live on a bus mainly.
So glamorous.
With my band and my crew. It's not there are 16 of us sleeping on each bus. So it's
when you say a bus, I imagine it's slightly more glamorous than just a standard bus, though. It's not like a school trip bus, is it?
Well, it is kind of like that. I mean, if you put 16 people sleeping on a bus, it's not that glamorous. And I know we know each other intimately, and we've toured like that for 20 years. I can recognise whose snores is whose. And my family come and join us when they can, sleep in the spare bunk when they can.
Do you find that in the last 20 years you tend to stick with the same team? Is that all the same group?
Absolutely. I've generally had the same band and crew for 20 years. I've lost 2 bandmates who married girls in Australia. Check this out. This is a bizarre thing. 3 of my bandmates have married people from the audience.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Exactly. How did that happen? And I suppose in many ways that's not unnatural, because who else are we going to meet? Because over 20 years, we've just been on the road for most of that time, travelling the world. But how did that meet? Well, we had to go and ask those people if they'd come backstage and have a drink.
And it worked out.
And 3 of them have married people that way.
It's like the music version of Tinder.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. Can I ask you a few things that I have read about you, and I don't know if they're necessarily entirely true. Were you at university with Bear Grylls?
I was, and we were in a band together.
So you did go busking with
We
him?
were in a band together called Limp Willie and the Disappointments. And we would go around busking around the streets of Bristol, and we'd stop people, couples, and say, "What's your name?" And, to the guy and to the girl. And she would say her name is Jenny, and his name would be Paul. And we'd then sing a song, and it would go, like when young Jenny becomes a lady, all she wants to do is have a baby. When young Paul becomes a man, he wants to help her with her plan. And this song would go on for maybe 15 minutes until the guy would just pull out money and pay us just to leave them alone. So it was basically, musical mugging.
I love that. I love it. And I love the fact that you have so many showbiz friends. So we've got there Bear Grylls and Ed Sheeran also.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have many showbiz pals. I think, we're in the business of music or whatever it is, but, it doesn't mean they're people I would necessarily want to hang out with just because of what they do. But along 20 years, you're going to meet a few. And Ed was actually managed by my same management firm. Elton John set up a management company because he'd been so badly managed to begin with. So he set up a management firm to look after artists and was very supportive of young artists. And I was lucky enough to have his support. Ed is another of those. fellows on the management firm, and we bumped into each other along the way, and have become mates. And I'm very lucky to know him. Really, he's a fantastic musician and a very nice man as well.
Yeah, well, I feel that if you've done music with Bear Grylls, it's only right that you give the people what they want and do some music with Ed Sheeran as well.
Yeah. Well, I've toured with him, obviously as his support act, because he so exceeds what I do. And we have songs out together. We've written songs together. It's, he writes very quickly. I feel like I'm just his secretary when I'm writing. I'm just trying to scribble the words down.
I bet that is quite amazing to experience, like with two genuinely brilliant songwriters working together. Who gets to have ultimate say over what happens?
Well, of course I'm in charge.
Of course.
No, I mean, no, songwriting is about pooling ideas, isn't it? And also because we know each other, it's just a kind of pleasure. We know what's going on in our lives, so the songs then are real rather than contrived.
Yeah. And you have a pub in London as well.
I have a pub called the Fox and Pheasant, which when I first went in there, and I didn't own it at the stage, it was so grotty, we called it the Fox and Unpleasant. But I would play the game in this pub with my friends of what would we do to this pub to make it the pub that it could be, because it's a beautiful old thing, 170 years old. And we play the game of, I know what I'd do. I'd put, fix the lose for the first thing. And a whole host of other ideas. And then I was out on the town with a friend of mine who said that he had the pub on his books, and I'd had a couple of drinks and said, stuff it, I'll buy it because I know what I'm going to do with it already. And so, it's in Chelsea, called the Fox and Pheasant, and you should come along.
Okay, no, well, that sounds good. Are you there very often?
Yeah, if I'm in London, I try and drop down, a couple of times, 3 times a week. They don't allow me behind the bar. The management, they keep me down in the pot washing the plates because it's a bit embarrassing. They maybe pull me up at sort of 5 to midnight when we need to clear people out. Yeah.
I bet. Do you know what's amazing? You've done so brilliantly over the last 20 years. It feels like you're just constantly producing incredible music. Well, 7 studio albums, is that right so far?
Yeah.
Do you plan ahead much, or do you just kind of see where it goes? When Coldplay have announced that they're only going to do 12 albums, then that's it. Do you think about having a plan like that, or
how many albums are they into?
I know. I think they've done 10 maybe,
right?
And then they're saying there's only 2 more.
Amazing. 12 is a pretty good number, isn't it, for anyone nowadays? I mean, I have a contract with a record label, and I'm so lucky to still be in a contract with, new artists going into the business are signed normally on the number of followers they already have on TikTok or Instagram or things like that, which is bizarre. They've had to then fight for that audience before a record label are even interested in them. And then they're signed normally not to an album deal or a 5-album deal that I was signed to. They're signed to maybe a 1-song deal. So new musicians find it very tough to get support in the industry. I'm very lucky to still be signed up to a deal, but the consequence of that means that I need to go and put out another album, and they're looking over my shoulder saying, when's that next album? And I don't really plan it ahead. I write about what's going on in my life at the time, and that's why I suppose my songs are about real experiences. I have to, if I'm feeling happy, you get happy songs, and if not, you get miserable songs.
Do you have a place that you write, or is it just something that you do as you go along? I've literally never written a song in my life. I've no idea how it works, so I don't know if you've got a process.
Well, I can't really write at home because, it's one of the only things I'm really proud about is I've raised children who have great taste in music, and they hate my music. If I'm writing on the piano, they do tell me to shut up, and I'm proud of that. So I have to go and find myself a studio away from home and get in there and write what's going on.
Okay, all right. So it's not like you carry a little notebook around and you're constantly writing ideas down.
I've got a phone, so if I've got an idea, I can stick it on record.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. What can the fans look forward to with the tour, with the re-release as well?
Well, the idea is that I'm going to play the whole of Back to Bedlam from the start of it, the first song, all the way to the 10th song in order, which hopefully will take people on the kind of emotional, musical, nostalgic journey of how they heard that album in the first place. And then I'll chuck in the other songs that they know, like 1973 and Bonfire Heart and Monsters. Those will come after, but it will take you on the Back to Bedlam journey.
Oh, amazing. There are so many of those songs that do, as you say, trigger memories of so many important points in your life as well when you're looking back 20 years.
Yeah, and kind of in the same way of Coldplay's first album. Presumably they don't play all the songs off that album now, but the songs that weren't singles, we still all know because that first album sold so much. And with mine, they aren't singles that you hear on radio, but you're going to know some of those songs because lots of people would have had the whole and played the whole album.
Yeah. Do you know, when you look back on the very first time that you kind of started releasing music, and as you say, you got the phone call and you're telling you that it was doing so well, could you ever have anticipated that? I think every musician would dream of that. But was that your goal? Was your goal to do that well, or was it just to have an inkling of success?
I think when my dad asked me about when I was leaving the army and said, James, are you doing the right thing? Because, it's a secure, steady job that you're in the army. It's a safe job, ironically, a safe job, he was saying, compared to the dangers of going into the music business. And at the time I was saying, hey, Dad, well, success to me is not by measured in fame or fortune, but just the smile on my face, and to know that I'm chasing my dream, to enjoy doing music, and better that than, reaching old age and saying I had a dream and I was too afraid to follow it. So yeah, I just wanted to do music and enjoy music and make that first album. And sure, I pictured playing to an audience, but no, I didn't really have the idea that 20 years later I would sell out the O2. Wasn't part of it. To still be in here, I hadn't really planned it this far, and I say I feel very lucky.
Yeah, well, it's going brilliantly. I will hopefully be there at the O2 in February. I'd love to come and see you. Thank you, James Blunt. Thank you so much for chatting to us.
Yeah, thank you. So lovely to be here. So lovely to see you.